In our secular world where there are a lot of people that are anti-church, what would you see, especially when we're talking to our friends and those that do not have a strong religious conviction, what would you see as an important point to raise to them to at least aware them of the good works the church is doing, and that the church isn't, I think the church can be seen sometimes as the antichrist for people that are not religious. So I just want to know, what advice could you give us young Catholics that would allow us to speak more freely to young people our age about the good works of the church?
Look, I think that's a good question, and I guess it's always been a function of the church to do good works, and I know that probably Catholics got a very good name in among an unusual group at one point when AIDS was rampant, and still now it's legendary in the gay community that the nuns at St Vincent's, who, if you're an anti-Catholic bigot, would imagine would be the last people on earth showing compassion to, gays, they were the most compassionate and, well, not the most, but they were endlessly, boundlessly compassionate and comforted these poor people in their dying hours and months and so on. So, I'm sure that their ministry had a huge impact on a generation of young gay men and their friends and their families and their partners. So if you like, that was sort of an advertisement. And I think those sorts of things are happening everywhere. I mean, the social justice arm of the Catholic Church, I don't think has withered on the vine at all. I think that, if anything, Catholics who are uncomfortable with the more difficult aspects of their faith, around social issues, family, abortion, divorce, euthanasia and so on, cling more strongly to the social justice arms, which no one can find objectionable. Everybody wants to look after the homeless and the dying and so on, and Catholics will continue to do that, and that's part of our mission and very, very important, and should not never lose sight of it. But I think that arm of the Catholic Church, the social justice arm, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think that generosity of spirit and so on remains strong. And I think where Catholics and the Church have lost their way is not being brave enough to prosecute those other more difficult things, which, in a sense, feed into the social justice arm. Because if you have strong families, for instance, you don't have kids who are sexually abused and grow up in drug-addled households, not being able to speak English when they're 8 years old, which is a friend of mine told me about. These animal children who grow up in these ghettos. This is in Canberra. So I think the other parts of Catholicism that make defending our faith in that way are important from a social justice angle as well. I can't see very well because I've got these lights here, so if I seem a bit blind up here, I am.
Just right. Hi, Miranda. Are you sometimes uncomfortable with being tagged right-wing, conservative, and are you sometimes uncomfortable with the church being tagged that? When, last I looked, the church fought for the fullness of truth, goodness and beauty, and the church is neither left-wing or right-wing. So are you uncomfortable with that sometimes? Or when people say the church is right-wing or conservative or whatever?
Well, I guess because...
before you answer the question.
Sorry?
Just before you answer the question, we need people to be quiet because not everyone can hear you. So just keep it down, guys. You can hear me. Thanks.
Magic. So, look, and I think the right-wing tag, look, I haven't particularly liked, but it's just there. What can you do? And some people think and then I think, well, if, you know, being right-wing is being conservative is holding the values I do, well, then it's not that bad. And it's kind of pretty mainstream, really, in my circles. But obviously, right-wing is used as a, you know, it's like being Hitler by my opponents. So I guess in that way I don't like it and I'm uncomfortable with it. And I remember when I really got that tag when I moved to the Herald, because I was, you know, unusual on their opinion pages. And I remember I'd been there just a few months, and I was sent to New York after September 11, and I met up with a friend of mine, an American woman who'd been in Sydney and worked at the Herald for a couple of years, and she'd just gone back to New York and she was working at the Daily News, and we met up after a few days and had a meal, and she said, "Oh, how are you enjoying the Herald?" And I said, "Well, not very much, because they think I'm a right-wing fascist." And she said, "But Miranda, in New York you'd be a liberal." So, you know, I think the labels people put on you, as long as you don't come to believe them about yourself, you just accept them. And I just figure that it's just another way of people trying to marginalise things that I believe in, and therefore send the message to other people that if you believe in what Miranda is writing about, then you must also be an evil right-winger who everyone will hate. So I kind of take it as a badge of courage.
Just to your right again, Miranda.
Hi Miranda, thanks for being with us tonight. It seems to me that one of the virtues which is most prized in our society is the freedom of speech and free to express opinions and religious beliefs, and as an extension of that, valuing people who are very accepting of a diversity of opinions. So how, as young Catholics, do we proclaim the truth in a public domain with trying not to appear stubborn or intolerant or arrogant? Thank you.
I think you don't want to shy away from seeming intolerant of some views, because some views are really repellent. And so I think a problem, another problem in Australia is that we are a little weak when it comes to sort of challenging accepted, you know, ideas. And so for an example, just recently I wrote a little column about how in the national curriculum for the HSC, there's the terms, the historical terms BC and AD have been replaced with, I mean, you would all know this because it's been in textbooks for a while, but BCE, which is before Common Era, and Common Era, CE, but also this other thing called BP, which is before present, which is sort of nonsensical. And it's you know, that's all about the language being changed in that Orwellian way to delete Christ from the curriculum. And, you know, Australians are very easygoing about these things, and they sort of let these sort of creeping changes happen, and they shrug their shoulders and go, "Oh, well, it's not really worth having a fight about, who cares, you know, I still know it's BC." But in a way, that allows the bad guys to win, because, you know, the bad guys aren't just doing these things in a random way. They actually have you know, this is not a conspiracy theory to say this, because you just have to read the, you know, writings of people like Gramsci, and they have, you know, the idea of that long march through the institutions. And so what you're fighting against is a deliberate, concerted campaign, and you can't really be tolerant of all opinions and all ideas, because then you just get obliterated and your way of life is destroyed. So while I'm all for tolerance, I think too much tolerance sort of begets intolerance and totalitarianism.
And we've got one